Oral questions, question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Selon le Journal de Montréal,
the Journal de Montréal stated that students who are struck with food inflation are resorting ever more to food banks. A recent poll shows that 51%, that is, the majority of Canadians, find it difficult to feed themselves. But the carbon tax is a tax on food because it is a tax on farmers, producers, and truckers who then deliver our food. So how much will groceries cost families when the Prime Minister will implement the triple carbon tax? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, students and families from coast to coast to coast know very well that climate change is real and that it needs to be countered. They also need assistance to pay for gas and for groceries, and that is the reason for which our price on pollution gives more money back to families who need it than it costs. That is the reason for which we continue to put families first in order to protect the future. In the Atlantic provinces, we've seen how climate change can have a great effect on our country. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Fair over the weekend, and a farm family told me that they spent $12,645 on carbon taxes in July alone. Now, obviously, that gets passed on to customers. $12,645 in 1 month. Now the Prime Minister wants to triple the tax on that family, which they'll have to pass on, and even higher food prices, which have already gone up more than at any time in 40 years. How much will this family have to spend on carbon taxes when the Prime Minister triples them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition doesn't seem to understand that clever slogans don't help families. Investments in Canadians help families. Checks help families. That's why we were so pleased when he reversed his earlier opposition to our GST tax credit and is now supporting that direct support for Canadian families. Why will he now not move forward and support our investments to support low-income rental families, families with rental, and low-income families with dental costs for their kids? Will he support rental and dental for low-income Canadians?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Feeding people is not a clever slogan. It is a necessity of life. This family spent $12,645 on carbon taxes in a single month. But it's still not enough for this Prime Minister. He wants to triple the tax, increasing the cost for that farmer, which then has to pass it on to the customer, which means that more of our food will be produced abroad and shipped up here, polluting more our environment by shipping, training, and trucking that food. Again, will he answer the question, how much will this family have to spend on carbon taxes once he's tripled them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I just got back from Atlantic Canada, where people are reeling from the impacts of Hurricane Fiona. And the reality is these 100-year storms are going to be arriving with greater and greater frequency. We know that climate change is real, and it takes real plans and supports to fight climate change. And that's what we've been working on for the past 7 years, Mr. Speaker. At the same time as we've moved forward with ensuring that it is not free to pollute anywhere in this country, we are putting more money back in average families' pockets with the climate rebate. This is the focus that we need to continue to take for Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
One, his climate rebate comes nowhere near $12,645 for this farm family. Two, his carbon tax has not hit a single solitary emissions reduction target. It has not worked. And three, in the month of July, when this family was paying $12,645 in his carbon tax, supposedly for the environment, the Prime Minister jumped on his private jet 20 times. High carbon hypocrisy. He can't tell us how much the tax will cost. Will he tell us how much carbon he emitted in that month of July when he was raising the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, you don't have to convince Albertans or Saskatchewanians who've dealt with wildfires that climate change is real. You don't have to convince British Columbians who've seen record levels of floods that climate change is real. You certainly don't have to convince Atlantic Canadians who are rebuilding after yet another storm of the century that climate change is real. People know we need to take action on that, and that's exactly what this government has done by putting a price on pollution to ensure it's no longer free to pollute anywhere in the country and given more money back to families that need it. When is the Conservative leader going to get serious on climate change?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister hasn't gotten serious on climate change. He has a tax plan, not a climate plan, that has raised money for his government but has not reduced emissions or hit targets. Right. Now, this Prime Minister has the audacity to call this farm family polluters while he jets around in his private jet across the country. What the effect of his plan will be is to drive up domestic food production costs, drive that production out of our country to more polluting lands where it has to be transported longer distances. Why does he want to drive prices and emissions up and farm production and opportunity down?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition came up with, put as much energy into building a plan to fight climate change as he does into concocting elaborate theories and attacks, we might be better off. We might be able to compare a real climate plan from the Conservatives to what the government has been doing for the past 7 years. But he would prefer to focus on me than focus on Canadians and their future. We're going to stay focused on fighting climate change and putting more money back in Canadians' pockets. That's what Canadians expect. That's what we're going to keep doing.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, Monday, Quebec gave itself a majority government. This new government is asking more powers in immigration. Some ask for all powers, and some ask for every single power to be provincial. First tableau, more power for immigration. The Quebec lieutenant said that yesterday Quebec has all the powers they need. French is receding. English is proceeding. Is that a successful language policy for the government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, like the Honourable colleague knows full well, this government has always been there to protect French throughout the country and within Quebec. And I look forward to working with Premier Legault on the matter with regards to immigration. Quebec has all the tools it needs. If it wants more francophone immigrants, if it wants to accept more immigrants, well, they have the tools necessary to do so, and we will happily work with them to ensure that we meet labour shortages so that we have increasing communities and that we protect French at the same time. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, the Prime Minister has said, well, we will not concede any powers in immigration to Quebec. The only thing that the government wants, the only thing that we want more in Quebec is immigration, yes, but they should be happily and harmoniously integrated in French. Why not discuss with this Premier who has 3/4 of seats in Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The government of Quebec has enough control over immigration to double the number of immigrants that they can accept now. We are very much open to working with them if they want to. If they want to bring more francophone immigrants, we are here to help them. We know that companies throughout Quebec are facing labour shortages. We know this for economic growth, and we know that immigrants bring a deep wealth to Quebec and Quebec culture, and we will always be here to work hand in hand to improve all Quebecers' life. It's ever more difficult for people to pay for their bills. On the one hand, we have the Minister for the Environment who seeks to protect the profits of big oil and gas. On the other hand, we have the CEO of Shell saying that the government needs to force big oil and gas companies to pay their just parts to help people. So how can the Prime Minister explain? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, building an economy that works for everyone has always been this government's absolute priority. And we have always wanted to do so by asking the richest to do a little bit more and to reduce tax burdens for the middle class. And that is what we did with our first measures as a government, and that is what we continue to do every single day. And what we have done over the past 7 years, we will always be here to ask a bit more from the richest, and we'll always be here to help the middle class and create more prosperity and opportunities for all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
More interested in protecting the profits of big oil and gas than helping people in need. The cost of gas is going up by 10 cents a litre today. Quote, governments need to tax energy producers to help the poorest people deal with the soaring cost of fuel, end quote. Who do you think said that? Definitely not the leader of the Conservative Party, certainly not the Minister of the Environment. This was the CEO of Shell. How is it possible that the CEO of Shell is more interested in helping people deal with the cost of fuel than the Prime Minister?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize that oil and gas industry is making record profits right now, but we also recognize that they need to be investing in the clean transition. They need to be reducing their carbon emissions and preparing for Canada to be that source of energy in a net zero world. That is what Canada can do, and that's where we're going to continue to ensure that successful corporations pay their fair share of taxes, and that we continue to support low-income Canadians and middle-class Canadians, including with our measures on a GST rebate, our measures on rental and dental supports for Canadians. We look forward to working with all parties on those issues.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge. I don't think the Honourable Member for Lethbridge had a musical intro there, so we'll rule that out. Let's start that one again. The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
In 2018, the government was made aware of a horrific allegation. It was an allegation with regards to gang rape against 8 members of the Hockey Canada team. This government was made aware, but chose to do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Canadian tax dollars continued to flow to the organization. Zero accountability was put in place. It was swept under the rug. That is until 4 years later. Why did this government fail to act when it first came to light?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have always taken allegations of sexual misconduct seriously in any organizations. We have always acted, and we will continue to do so. What Canadians are seeing continuing to come out of Hockey Canada is absolutely unacceptable. Parents across the country, like myself, who's had kids in hockey, parents, families, young kids, we care about hockey in this country. We know we need to see a better organization than that. Hockey Canada's tone deafness to the fact that they have lost the confidence of Canadians needs to end, which is why we've stopped funding them, which is why we're calling for change.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
With all due respect, I didn't ask as to whether or not there was still support for hockey in this country. I recognize that that's a national sport and we're proudly behind it. However, we should not be proudly behind the behavior that has been exhibited by members of the team. And so I'm asking the Prime Minister, why for 4 years did this feminist government, or I should say so-called feminist government, do absolutely nothing when they had the power to do something and the information in their hands? Nothing.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Already imposed some of the strictest penalties and limits on funding towards Hockey Canada. Right now, it is for Hockey Canada to understand that they have completely lost any trust or faith by Canadians in it, and the organization must be transformed, or like we're seeing with Hockey Quebec, saying that they're not going to engage with Hockey Canada anymore. More and more organizations across the country are simply going to turn their back on this organization that is not worthy of building strong futures for our kids.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Michelle and Jeanette, they farm in beautiful Embrun, Ontario, but a quarter of their fuel prices was carbon taxes. If the Liberals triple that carbon tax, they have said that they're going to be paying $18,000 a year. Wow. Now, unlike what the Prime Minister is saying, that is not revenue neutral. They will get pennies back through the Liberal rebate. I've heard from farmers across this country that have said if the Liberals triple the carbon tax, it will bankrupt them. Will the Prime Minister cancel his plans to triple this tax on Canadian farm families like Michelle and Jeanette?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians across the country, including farmers, are dealing with more and more extreme weather events. Climate change is real, and we need to tackle it together. The way we are doing that is by putting a price on pollution and returning the costs of that to average families across the country. On top of that, we're working with the agricultural industry that recognizes how important it is to protect our environment, to protect our planet, and we're ensuring that families, and including farm families, can continue to succeed in coming years, even as we fight against climate change. Why don't Conservatives believe in climate change?
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
The Prime Minister realizes that they will not succeed. The biggest threat facing our farmers is the triple threat offered by the Liberals: fertilizer tariffs, higher interest rates, higher carbon taxes. This has put thousands of family farms on the brink of insolvency. Even Canadian consumers understand the threat of the triple threat, as grocery prices are up 10%, and this is driving food costs even higher. Does the Prime Minister understand? By tripling the carbon tax, the end result will be no fertilizer, no farms, and no food.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Conservative Party wanted to help Canadians, they should do what they've done on the GST tax credit, reversing their position to support our support for families, and do the same with our low-income supports for renters and our supports for families on costs of dental care for kids. These two measures are concrete and will help Canadian families. The Leader of the Opposition flip-flopped and is now supporting the GST proposal. Will he now support renters and the dental support that Canadians need? That is something tangible we should all be able to agree on helping.
L'Honorable Député de Charbot-Haute-Saint.
The Honourable Member for Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister likes making Canadians think that Canada can do nothing to fight inflation, but then Laval University is being forced to cancel construction of a new building because of rising construction costs. In addition, families across Quebec are cutting back on groceries to pay other bills, and the Prime Minister wants to triple the carbon tax. If he wants to truly help Canadians, will he cut this increase in this carbon tax? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Quebecers, like all Canadians, understand that it is important to fight against climate change. We have a plan that is doing exactly that. I look forward to maybe one day perhaps hear the Conservative plan. But if the Conservatives really want to help Canadian families, then they should not only support our GST credit, they should also support our rental and dental plan. We're here to help Canadians. Will the Conservatives support us and work with us to help Canadians? The Honourable Member for Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we see that the government's plan simply does not work. His own government's report has just announced that food inflation is at 11%. Almost 9 million Canadians are now cutting back on the amount of food that they buy because of inflation, and the vast majority are women. 2.5 million Canadians are skipping meals and paying for groceries with a credit card without knowing when they will be able to pay for them. Will the Prime Minister commit to not raising taxes on Quebecers and Canadians on the 1st of January? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We know how Canadians are suffering from inflation, which is a global phenomenon. And that is the reason for which that we are helping them concretely with the GST credit that finally the Conservatives decided to support after having criticised it. And now we'll ask if the Conservatives will also support our rental assistance and our dental assistance for those who need it the most. We know how this is concrete help that will help Canadians. Will Conservatives finally support us on the matter?
The Honourable Member
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Roxham Road is first and foremost a humanitarian issue. The humanitarian option, would it not be to officially welcome migrants without arresting them at regular border posts, without delivering them onto bandits and passers, investing $500 million into Immigration Canada and the CBSA, instead of expulsing them after they've successfully implanted themselves into Quebec? Well, wouldn't all that be the more humanitarian thing to do? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, Canada is a generous and values-based country that is open to the world. We make sure that at every step the values that are the very foundation of Canada continue to be respected. Yes, we work every single day with the American government to improve the Third Safe Party Agreement. We are currently ensuring that when people come to Canada, they follow the rules, and we follow the rules by protecting them. We are here to support Quebec. That is working very hard with Roxham Road, and we will continue to be there to defend our values and our system. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. If I may, Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the presence of the MP for Richmond-Athabasca. There are three big political players in Quebec now. With regards to immigration and French, the Prime Minister is a minority there as well. Roxham Road. Is it not a humanitarian issue that sometimes give the government an ideological comfort when it is a way for the government to give contracts to its best buddies? Before the Right Honourable Prime Minister answers, I would like to remind members that we are not allowed to refer to someone directly in the House. We're only allowed to name them through their riding. Noting their presence is not something that is allowed to be done because sometimes members have other obligations out of the House. It's not that MPs aren't working outside of the House, but they are doing something else. A presence or not in the House does not mean that they are doing their job. And so one cannot refer to the presence of another MP. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada has one of the best immigration systems in the world. What's more, we have a population and a parliament that is very much in favour of immigration. That is a strong asset on this planet. In this geopolitical global situation, there are labour shortages, for example, and we need to create population growth, and we will welcome ever more immigrants to Canada. The reality is that we have to do so in a just and rigorous way, anchored in our values, and that is always what we try to do. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prices hit $2.40 a litre in Vancouver. They just jumped 10 cents a litre in one day in other markets. And what's the NDP Liberal solution? More price gouging. The costly coalition voted to triple the tax on gasoline and other essentials. The biggest price gougers in Canada are these two parties that form this costly coalition. When they do triple the tax, how much will it cost to buy a litre of gas across Canada?
Hey, the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a number of years ago, 6 years ago, this government moved forward to make sure that pollution was no longer free anywhere in this country. That is a core part of fighting climate change. But at the same time as we move forward with a price on pollution across the country, we ensured that we return more money than the average family pays out with that price on pollution in the areas in which it applies. That is how we ensure we are fighting climate change and putting more money in Canadians' pockets who need it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That's factually false. His own parliamentary budget officer said that In the 4 provinces where the rebates exist, 60% of people pay more in carbon tax costs than they get back in rebates. And in 6 provinces out of 10, they don't get any rebate at all, even though the federal government will force those provinces to triple the tax after a vote by the costly coalition of the NDP and Liberals. How much will Eastern Canadian rural families be forced to pay in higher taxes on their home heating when this Prime Minister triples the carbon tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You know what Eastern Canadians are seeing right now, what they told me? They told me they're worried for the fact that there are going to be more intense storms in the coming years, that their kids and their grandkids are going to face a world in which extreme weather events are increasingly frequent, which will threaten not just their communities, not just their way of life, but their very future. The fact is, we need to continue to step up in the fight against climate change, something Conservative politicians don't seem to understand, and the model that we have of putting a price on pollution returns more money every year to families who need it. That's the model we have. That's how we're helping Canadians as we fight climate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It isn't working. He hasn't hit a single solitary climate target since he brought in this tax. According to the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland, rural families will have seen an 80% increase in their home heating costs when the carbon tax kicks in there. 40% of Atlantic Canadians live in energy poverty. The Prime Minister can insult these people and call them polluters while he jets around in his private jet. Or he can recognize that heating your home in January in rural Newfoundland is a basic necessity. How much will he impose in extra costs on those families when he trickles?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians want to see a better future for their kids and for their grandkids. And that only happens if we continue to not just fight against climate change, but invest in the jobs and the transformation of our economies that is going to be needed to ensure good careers for them, good opportunities for those communities and families. That's what our plan to fight climate change does. The Conservative Party chooses to deny climate change exists and refuses to put forward a plan to fight climate change. That's not what Atlantic Canadians, or indeed any Canadians, need.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister does not have a climate plan. He has a tax plan. His climate promises have failed every single year. And now, with his tax hike on farmers, I asked him how much that farm family would have to pay. He didn't have an answer. Well, here's the answer. That family will pay more, which means more of the food production will be sent other ways to other countries where they have lower environmental standards. That food will then have to be shipped, trained, and trucked back to Canada at higher pollution, and we will be more dependent on foreign farmers. Why is it this Prime Minister wants to drive pollution up, farm production out, and jobs down?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I could just as well ask why the Leader of the Opposition wants to make pollution free again. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that farm families, like all families across the country, are worried about their kids and their kids' future. They're worried about the land that sustains us and this extraordinary country that provides us all so much. That's why we need to be better stewards of the land altogether, which is why we're moving forward with a strong plan to fight climate change that includes supports for farm families, supports for agricultural industry, as we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, as we create good jobs and a good future for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
It is clear that wages have absolutely not kept up with inflation, and there is no evidence to suggest that high wages in any way contribute to inflation. But there is mounting evidence that corporate greed is driving up the cost of living. Given that, it is outrageous for the Bank of Canada to tell employers not to increase workers' wages. So my question is to the Prime Minister, does he agree with the Bank of Canada that employers shouldn't be increasing wages to keep up with inflation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know how much inflation, this global phenomenon, is hurting Canadian families, and that's why it's important to get inflation under control. That's why, with our measures to put forward to support Canadians, whether it's with the GST rebate that's delivering for Canadians across this country, whether it's support for low-income rentals, whether it's support for families with low incomes who want to get dental care for their kids, we know that those will be real supports for Canadians while at the same time not driving up or contributing to further inflation. We need to make sure we're getting inflation down as quickly as possible. That is the focus that the Bank of Canada has given. That's the focus that this government.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Since the Prime Minister is unclear on where he stands, let me speak directly to workers and let you know we stand on your side for better wages.
Hear, hear.
If the only response to the inflation, if the only response to the cost of living going up is for the Bank of Canada to increase interest rates, that will only mean more pain. More pain for families paying their mortgage, more pain for people buying their groceries on a credit card. We know that corporate greed is driving up the cost of living. So will the Prime Minister tackle corporate greed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I know the leader of the New Democrats cares about our institutions, and I know he didn't mean to slight the independence of the Bank of Canada. We have strong and rigorous institutions in this country that make determinations around how to best serve and fight inflation, and we support them in their independent work. At the same time, in this House, we have a responsibility to be delivering for Canadians, which is why we're moving forward with a GST credit that's going to help millions of Canadian families, moving forward with support for renters and dental support for low-income families that I certainly hope, like the NDP, the Conservatives will choose to support.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, Hurricane Fiona was a stark reminder of the work we need to do here in this chamber, and an example that in times of crisis, Canadians come together. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that these once-in-a-generation storms are happening nearly every year. Our oceans are warming, and comments like the one from the Conservative member from Battleford, Lloydminster, who asked why carbon price did not prevent Hurricane Fiona, are not rooted in reality. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister please address why we need to fight climate change?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for St. John's East for her question and her passionate advocacy for all Newfoundlanders. Mr. Speaker, I spoke with a number of Atlantic Canadians and Quebecers since the storm whose lives have been forever altered by Hurricane Fiona. Their feedback to me was clear. We have to use every tool we have and work together to fight climate change, even as we support them and rebuild in their provinces. In order for us to continue the fight against climate change, the leader of the Conservative Party needs to accept some core facts, like that climate change is real and we have to keep doing more to fight it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Is the IRGC a terrorist group? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have recognized that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. We continue to move forward in holding the IRGC to account, including by putting sanctions on some of their, the number of their top leaders to ensure that they cannot take safe haven or buy property in Canada. We will continue to hold this bloodthirsty regime to account as young Iranians and the people around the world stand with them in defense of their fundamental rights and freedoms.
And the Leader of the Opposition.
We don't need drama. We don't need acting. We need action. This group killed 55 Canadian citizens whose only crime was to get on a plane whereafter they were shot out of the sky by a terrorist organization that can still legally operate in Canada because the Prime Minister has not put them on the list of terrorists. So again, yes or no, is the IRGC a terrorist organization? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has some of the strongest sanctions in the world against the bloodthirsty regime in Iran. We have stood with the families of PS 752 over the past 1,000 days to ensure accountability and justice. Of course, the Iranian government continues to resist any calls for accountability and justice. We will continue to hold them to account, including on the international stage. We have listed the IRGC Quds Force as a terrorist organization. We will continue to sanction the leadership of the IRGC as we make sure that they are fully accountable for the crimes they're committing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I asked a simple yes or no question. The Prime Minister has as his primary job to protect our citizens. 55 of them were murdered by this terrorist group, which shot their plane out of the sky, a civilian aircraft. Does the Prime Minister believe that the group that fired that missile and killed our people is a terrorist group? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have listed we have recognized that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. We have seen listed the IRGC Quds Force. We have just recently moved forward with strengthened sanctions against IRGC leadership to ensure that they cannot find safe haven in Canada. But I will also say, having sat with families of the PS 752 victims, it was not just 55 Canadian citizens. There was close to 150 or more people on their way to Canada, permanent residents, students, who we also grieve for every single day and who we stand with as we hold this Iranian government to account, and will continue to.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I asked a simple yes or no question. The Prime Minister has had 1,001 days to think about the answer. His officials informed him that this group murdered our citizens. And yet, by failing to list the group as terrorist, he's allowing them to raise money, coordinate, plan, operate, and recruit right here on Canadian soil. They are not banned from doing any of those things. One last time. Will the Prime Minister show some respect and actually answer a question? Is this a terrorist group? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We have clearly identified Iran as a state supporter of terrorism. We have moved forward with strong sanctions against the leadership and the responsible people in the IRGC to prevent them from benefiting from the crimes they commit or purchasing or holding property in Canada. We will continue to stand up in support of the Iranian people who are so bravely contesting and protesting against this bloodthirsty regime. The young women who are waving their hijabs in the face of these criminals, the strength that they are showing every single day in standing up for their rights is something that all Canadians stand with together.
L'Honorable.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Temiskaming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hockey Canada has set up not one, but at least 2 funds to cover sexual assault cases. We all agree this is unacceptable. Last June, we all agreed to support a block motion calling for an independent inquiry into the way Hockey Canada handles these complaints. An independent inquiry would shed light on what happened and also provide recommendations that could apply to all sports and their federations. Will the Prime Minister finally launch this independent inquiry, or are we going to have to wait and put up with this organization that's out of touch? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Everyone knows that what Hockey Canada is doing is unacceptable. It's inconceivable that the leadership there thinks they can continue to operate in the same way. Their federal funding has been cut off, and organizations like Hockey Quebec have already cut ties with Hockey Canada. I think the only people who think there's a future for Hockey Canada are the people in the organization, because Canadians have lost confidence in the organization. They need to wake up and be replaced. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hear the Prime Minister, what he's saying. Hockey Quebec has disavowed Hockey Canada and suspended their financial contribution to pressure the organization to clean up its act. The Prime Minister should up the ante too. He should launch an independent public inquiry into Hockey Canada's handling of sexual assault cases. They need to know that everything they've done will be found out and made public. And in order to get this done, I have to insist, when will the Prime Minister call for an independent inquiry? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Hockey Canada no longer has any credibility or legitimacy. As Prime Minister and as a parent, we're all proud of our national winter sport, and we will always make it very clear that what Hockey Canada has done is unacceptable, and the sooner they get it, that the jig is up, the better it'll be for all our children, so they can continue to play hockey and parents can put their confidence in the organizations.
This government has pledged only a third of a probable over $1 billion for the cleanup after Hurricane Fiona. The residents of Cumberland Colchester are calling our office every day to try to understand the process of obtaining funding. Once again, the government of inaction and no planning has no answer. On the East Coast, we are tough, but people need this support now, Mr. Speaker. When will this Prime Minister have a concrete plan for Atlantic Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to sit down with Premier Houston of Nova Scotia just yesterday to reassure him of how disaster assistance works in this country. Unfortunately, as a country, we're getting better at it, whether it's because of wildfires or floods across the country. The federal government is there to backstop up to 90% in some cases of the expenditures put out by the provinces on disasters like these ones. We will be there. We will be there to support Atlantic Canadians. As I've said it, we put forward $300 million in funding for cases that are not covered and issues that are not covered by the DPAA, but we will be there across the board to support it.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Atlantic Canadians need help now, not 2 years from now. The Prime Minister's sad, inadequate hurricane relief program will not even cover the cost of rebuilding wharfs. If the Prime Minister had a fisheries minister, he would know that the most immediate problem is income loss for lobster fishermen in the Northumberland Strait. That's because the season is over now and they cannot fish again until the winter fishery. Why is there no immediate emergency income relief support for fishermen in Nova Scotia, PEI, and New Brunswick?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I know for a fact that all Canadians and everyone in this House stands united in our support for Atlantic Canadians right now. It's not a moment for partisan disagreement. It's a moment to be there for Canadians. And what I have said repeatedly to Atlantic Canadians and to their premiers is that we are there as partners. We are flowing money now. We will be flowing money for the years to come. The federal government is there to help rebuild. We will do everything necessary in order to get people's lives back in order. That's a promise I made directly to folks on the ground. That's a promise I'm happy to repeat here in this House.
The honourable member for Coast of Bays Central Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister announced a third of the funding, over twice the time needed, to rebuild industries and infrastructure in the wake of Fiona's devastation. Small craft harbours alone needs $500 million to rebuild and fortify, while fish harvesters need at least $50 million to cover their losses and damages. Not to mention what's needed to rebuild tourism and agriculture. Why is this Prime Minister letting down Atlantic Canadians who've put so much trust in him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I got to sit down with people like Sean and Amy, who had a house from 2 blocks away, have the roof ripped off and landed on the side of their house. I talked to Brenda, who lost her antique shop. I talked to Mitch, who saw his seafood shop completely devastated by rising waves. And I made a commitment that we would be there. With my $300 million announcement yesterday, we're announcing that we're going to be there right away, including for things that aren't covered by the already existing disaster financial assistance agreement. We will be there to fund the province's efforts to close to 90%. We will be there to help rebuild.
L'honorable député de Dorval.
The honourable member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, yesterday was the National Action Day for women, youth, racialized people, and 2 SLGBTQIA people. They are victims of violence more than any other Canadians. Families and survivors are calling on the government to support their quest for justice. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House about the steps taken to put an end to this crisis? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Dorval-LaSalle-Lachine for her question and her hard work. Women, girls, and 2S LGBTQ plus people have the right to feel safe in the communities where they live. We will always support these communities and families in dealing with this crisis, and we will continue to work on concrete action to and remain sensitive to the trauma for those who have suffered and are still suffering.
Mr. Speaker, it is not enough to just put your hand over your heart, light up Parliament, and say we stand with Gina Massa Amini and the victims of Flight PS752 and their families. We know the Liberals are soft on crime. Now we know that they're also soft on terrorism. As Liberals continue to let the IRGC agents plan, organize, and raise money here in Canada, these are the same people that killed our people. The Prime Minister is denying victims of Iran's brutal regime justice. Does the Prime Minister believe the IRGC is a terrorist organization? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has some of the strongest sanctions against Iran of any country in the world. We've recognized Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism. We've moved forward with strong and meaningful sanctions against the leadership of the IRGC, and we will continue to do more. Over the past 1,000 days, we have stood with the families of the victims of PS752. We have worked with the international community, including at the ICJ and ICAO and other places, to ensure accountability for Iran. We will not rest until this regime is held to account for its bloodthirsty, murderous actions.
The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The brutal murder of Gina Massa Amini, the massacre of Flight 752, and the long list of human rights violations of the IRGC requires more than just symbolic sanctions.
That's right.
The IRGC is a terrorist organization that brutalizes Iranians and citizens of other countries. It is currently allowed to organize and raise money here in Canada. Mr. Speaker, once again, does the Prime Minister believe that the IRGC is a terrorist organization? Yes or no?
Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Some of the strongest sanctions in the world against the Iranian regime. We've continued to recognize Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism, and we will continue to ensure that the IRGC leadership does not find safe haven for their money, for their properties, or themselves in Canada. We know we need to continue to do more, and we will, as Canada and people around the world stand with the girls and women in Iran who are standing up against this regime, in memory of Massa Amini, in memory of the PS752 victims, in memory of all those this bloodthirsty regime has murdered.
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, on January 8th, 2020, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps shot down a civilian airliner, Flight 752, killing 55 Canadian citizens and 30 residents of this country. My question to the Prime Minister is very simple. Does he believe that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is a terrorist organization? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The IRGC is an arm of the Iranian military. Iran is a country that we have recognized as a state sponsor of terrorism. We've continued to move forward on strong sanctions against IRGC leadership to ensure that they can't find safe haven in Canada, that they cannot find a safe place for their money or their fundraising in Canada. We will continue to work with the international community to get justice for the victims of PS 752, support for the families, to hold this murderous regime to account.
Honorable député de...
The honourable member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, with the hurricanes and droughts and so on, farmers' mental health has taken a real hit and made life difficult for a lot of people. Mental Illness Awareness Week gives us a chance to talk about mental health and recognize that the pandemic has affected a lot of already marginalized people like young people, women, Indigenous communities, 2S LGBTQIA plus people, racialized people, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Can the Prime Minister inform this House what our government is doing to improve the mental health of Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Pontiac for her hard work and her good question. Our government is committed to working with to make mental health care treated as an integral part of our universal health care system. And that's why we launched the Wellness Together portal and the Hope for Wellness helpline and are making preparations to get ready for the launch of the 988 hotline next year. We're working with our partners to offer these services to Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
Yesterday, Indigenous families, communities across Turtle Island grieved and demanded answers for their missing loved ones. Families have been calling for justice and urgent action from this government. Instead of doing everything they can to ensure no more lives are lost, the Liberals have been doing the bare minimum. They have spent only a fraction of the funding they promised for violence prevention initiatives and have barely implemented the calls for justice from the MMIW 2S report. The Liberals have been in power now 7 years. When will they finally start delivering the justice Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit folks deserve?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our hearts remain with survivors and families of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQI plus people. Addressing this ongoing violence requires living up to our goals as a country and living up to all the calls for justice. We're taking a whole-of-government approach supported by an over $2 billion investment in concrete measures to keep people safe and close to $2 billion investment to support Indigenous housing needs. We understand that there is always more to do, and we will continue to work urgently on it alongside Indigenous peoples.
L'honorable député de Richmond.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, we learned this week there's not just one but two funds at Hockey Canada for sexual abuse cases. Funds that come from young players' registration fees. Despite the fact that all MPs from all parties are appalled and offended, despite everything that's already been done about this, the leadership still doesn't seem to get it. Can the Prime Minister speak for all Canadians here and now and officially ask all Hockey Canada executives and directors to resign to make way for real culture change in that organization? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for his question. We all agree as Canadians we're frustrated and upset by the behavior and the insensitivity of Hockey Canada, faced with the concerns of Canadians, parents, and survivors all across the country. And that's why Hockey Canada has lost the confidence not only of this government, not only of Canadian parents, but also of other organizations that are affiliated like Hockey Quebec. I know that in the future, more organizations are going to say, enough's enough, we're going to stop dealing with Hockey Canada, and maybe then they will understand that the jig is up for Hockey Canada. That's all the time we have today.
L'honorable député de...
Point of order, Honourable Member for Pontiac.
Rappel au règlement, oui. When we have strong, capable women minister, and the MP from South Shore, St. Margaret, is saying we don't have a fishery minister, I'm shocked.
I'm afraid that's not a point of order. That is more debate, so we're going to let that rest. I don't see any other ones. Oh, a point of order, the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Just to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that the standing orders say we must not speak disrespectfully of each other here as other members. I'm not suggesting I question your ruling, but in light of Standing Order 16, I think that might have been within the rubric of a point of order.
I think the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Island has a point, and it's a good point of order. And I just want to remind everyone, when we're referring to each other, we do so with respect and dignity so that we can keep decorum in this chamber and have Canadians respect the work that we do for them. It being 3:20, pursuant to order made on Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion to concur in the third report of the Standing Committee on Health. Convoquez les députés.
Call on the members.